together whether you like it or not. I know we've all heard that one way, shape, or form, but it's very true. So my name is Blake Cornell. I'm a security consultant with British Telecom. I'm also involved with OWASP. Before I move on to any subsequent slides, I must say that my employer, any affiliated association, and any organization I'm associated with, or my employer have no liability or approve or know of anything that I'm going to say or do, or handstands or cartwheels. They don't want me to do anything. So now that that's done, we can get to the good stuff. So 2 questions, and then if I can get some hands as well. I presume all of you are interested in security. I'm not even asked that. Firstly, who uses IAX publicly facing? Asterisk Exchange. Who uses a web application for their logging infrastructure? Okay, so there's more hands there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about something that happened previously. I'm talking about something that happened now, and then we're going to discuss a few things that are kind of future tense. And if there are any questions, I'm going to try to do a technical quick. It's only 30 minutes, so I'm going to try to jam as much information in as possible. If there are any questions during, just raise your hand, and I really don't mind. So previous research of the people who use IAX, there was a bug patched about a year ago. Is anyone familiar? Does this ring a bell? There was a resource exhaustion within the IAX stack. Yeah, that was my fault, and I figure I say that now in front of everyone. So if the mob comes up, we at least have it on tape. So, good one. So I don't want to talk about why I think IAX is a brilliant protocol. I figure you guys would already know this as far as RTP being tunneled over the same port. There's no port forwarding issues, all that jazz. It's good stuff. So some previous research. I actually saw Doug outside. He's here. This is his article. A couple years ago, I wrote a script to be able to enumerate past firewalls and access control lists to be able to create an IEX connection. Unbeknownst to myself at the time, the script also, well, that's kind of a lie. The script also had a feature in it that if you continually sent this poke packet, the IEX server would eventually crash. The resources would be consumed. The server would no longer function as designed. So it's a CVE number. Is there anyone that's security-centric as far as their role? Okay. So CVE, NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, National Vulnerability Database, they picked it up. They rated it a 7.8 out of 10, which is pretty bad. You could take, at that time, you could take any IAX stack without authentication over UDP, which means you could have spoofed the packet. It's really tough to determine where it's coming from at that point, to basically shut your system off. And in the age of in America at least, every PBX system is supposed to be connected to 911. If, say for example, an attacker overseas were to use this script, shut your system off, no one can call 911. It's a pretty big deal. And if anyone disagrees with that, I'm sure we'll have a little discourse at the bar later. Just some more literature from this poke vulnerability. So this specific vulnerability was patched, and I did some more digging, and I realized there's 30 or so other ways to do the same thing. So basically, the solution, which took about 14 months to write a patch for it, broke backwards compatibility and added a few protection mechanisms to be able to mitigate this denial of service issue. So I picked up this webcast. I don't know if anyone saw this, but one of the presenters was the special agent from an FBI down there in that specific region. So I was going through it and listening to it, and all of a sudden, this one slide says, basically, we commonly see at least these 3 tools, and I didn't know what to say because I wrote the 3rd one. So I emailed the guy, I'm like, thanks for the cred, blah, blah, blah. So a tool, my analogy goes, a chef can be a murderer. You give him a knife, he could make a souffle, or he could souffle you, you know. So basically getting into some code is 15 bits of call space. Once that's been consumed, there's no more IEX packets coming in and out. As well, you'll see that there's CPU spike and other channel services start dying. SIP won't stop working. Basically, the box just sits there and does nothing. It's a really fancy paperweight at that point. Okay. So, the first vulnerability I discovered by accident, so I figured if I tried, I could find more, and I did. Which goes to show you the takeaway from this case study per se is that before you implement any type of protocol or software into a critical infrastructure, it's got to be tested. You have to look into this stuff. You have to test it. You have to try to break it. That's the whole point of the exercise. You have to try to break it. And if you could break it, you know, your attackers can as well. And if you don't test it, you really don't know what's possible, which leads to this whole unknown. Has anyone ever been through a penetration test as far as their infrastructure? Okay, so not enough, but at least it's over 0. Well, yeah. That's the disappointing part. If someone tells me that, you know, I'm surprised we've never been breached or hacked or something like that, I'm going to say, you sure about that? Like, how do you really know? You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, I got breached." It's like, well, you figured out you got breached. What was it? Uh-huh. Yeah, learning on the street, right? Yeah, it happens. You know, it's nothing to be ashamed about, in my opinion. If you have systems that are on the internet and there's critical information on it, it's going to be a target. That's the way it goes. So what I like to do is I use fuzzing a lot, and I'm going to show you during the next example. I'm going to show you a fuzzer, and I'm going to run through it real quick, kind of demonstrate how I go about doing my business. So it took them 14 months to fix. And by them, I mean like you guys, the open source community. It took so long because thousands of lines of code had to be written to be able to mitigate it. And it was a design flaw. Design flaw is 33 times more costly after it's been implemented. So say, for example, you have your design on the whiteboard. It's 33 times cheaper if you fix it on the whiteboard compared to if it's in production. And that's basically one of the reasons why it took so long, and it was so arduous, I should say. So determining if you were being attacked, in this example, if you see this ChanIX2.c raw hang-up, that's a dead giveaway that you're either out of memory or you're being attacked, because they're basically the same thing at that point. And some other situations, jitter, dropped audio, segmentation fault, signal 11 at certain points. So as you can see, the first line through the fourth line demonstrates, for me, the fourth line is the most significant because you can actually see the CPU usage drop off, and that's Asterisk dying. It just crashes and it's just not running. So that's pretty bad. And my buddy Jeremy, we tested against his UAT environment. So it took 25 seconds between you hit the last button on the phone and it's starting to ring, if it rang at all. So who would wait 25 seconds for the phone to ring? No one, right? So it's basically dead anyway. Okay, so before a patch was released, there's really not much you could do other than not use IEX, block it, enforce VPN, or enforce some type of IP restrictions. And that's not even a solution. It's more of a patch because it's UDP. If you have a trusted host, you could spoof the IP and you're through the firewall anyway. And it's always recommended to monitor your services irregardless of if you think they're vulnerable or not. And if you think they're not vulnerable, you're probably wrong. Okay, I already discussed that. So design errors are costly. So this is a basic rundown of me taking the IETF draft and turning it into a Perl hash. Okay, we got the draft, we got the Perl hash. Basically, this is what I did step by step. I took the entire IETF draft and I turned it into a Perl script. I just had it so it put every combination together and sent every possible packet combination. So instead of forging 1,000,000 packets, I wrote 100 lines of code and it sent all those packets for me. So people may say, you know, we can't really test every possible outcome. You can effectively. It takes some time, it takes some QA testing against your code, but it's worth it in the long run. For example, this flaw took me 2 days to find, and it took 14 months to fix. So there's, you know, the takeaway here once again is you got to test your stuff. You know, think like a little kid with a toy. He's going to check everything, and he's going to break it the first day. You know, if there's a weak point on the toy, he's going to take something off of it that day. You just have to go through the motions. You got to get pen tested. I'm slightly biased because I do pen testing, so maybe that's it. But everyone should at least look into their security and actively monitor and all that jazz. Okay. Pardon me. Is anyone familiar with web application vulnerabilities? Hence the OWASP Top 10. Specifically, we're going to talk about cross-site scripting. You may think, what the hell does cross-site scripting have to do with VoIP? And for a while, I thought the same thing, but it's got a lot to do with VoIP. Remember, I did ask who has a web application in their logging infrastructure. Okay. If anyone runs out of the room in a couple of minutes, we know that what they're going to go do. I'm not going to show the video because it shows a vulnerable vendor, and I don't want to out a vendor for being vulnerable even though they patched it. So just the web application overview, cross-site scripting. This information is from White Hat Security. Basically, every website has a critical vulnerability. It's inevitable at this point, the stage in the game. Knowing that, Asterisk is very common to integrate with a web infrastructure, whether clients use it,